When we think of prehistoric times, what is the image that most often comes to mind? Muscular, beast-like men, grunting as they drag women back to their caves like trophies. Savage tribes hunting and killing one another for food, blood, and primal power. A world where life itself was crushed beneath the heel of harshness and violence. But archaeologists were stunned when they uncovered an ancient cave painting. More than 15,000 years ago, somewhere on the grasslands of Eastern Europe, across an untamed land that had yet to be named, the painting showed two people sitting together. Not in a cave, not around a fire, just leaning against each other. Could it be that, in an age when survival depended on killing game and avoiding being hunted, love still had a place? Or were they simply two individuals who happened to sit side by side? Did they live in lifelong monogamous pairs as some of us do today? Or did men have multiple partners while women bore children without knowing who the father was? How did they raise their young? Were children cherished or abandoned if they were too weak to survive the winter? Let us journey back through time, guided by the latest archaeological discoveries to explore the lives of our prehistoric ancestors. Hunting and gathering, division and cooperation. A failed hunt could mean starvation, but picking the wrong berry could be just as deadly. Every small decision was a matter of life and death. In prehistoric society, hunting and gathering were not just means of survival, they were the bonds that tied community members together. Men often took on the role of hunters, using spears, wooden javelins, or traps to bring down large animals. However, this division of labor was not rigid. In certain harsh environments, or among modern-day hunter-gatherers like the Hadza of Tanzania, women also took part in small-scale hunts. Hunting tools, from simple wooden spears to sharpened stone tips, evolved over time. Some groups used traps, dug pits, or drove animals into enclosed areas to make the kill easier. Cave paintings, such as those at Lascaux in France, depict coordinated group hunts, revealing a surprisingly high level of organization. Gathering was a complex skill that required deep knowledge of plants and the environment. Women, the elderly, and children often played this role. They knew exactly when trees would bear fruit, which plants were safe to eat, and which ones were toxic. This knowledge was passed down through generations, learned by observing, experimenting, and sometimes at the cost of a life. The prehistoric diet was more balanced than we might imagine. Archaeological excavations at Blombos in South Africa have uncovered evidence of people consuming seafood, wild game, and plants. One excavated skeleton showed teeth in excellent condition, free from cavities or bone loss, suggesting a stable diet rich in both fiber and protein. Tool making, from bare hands to lethal weapons. A well-shaped stone could mean the difference between life and death. Not everyone knew how to smash meat with a rock, but those who could craft a sharp blade became leaders. The earliest tools used by humans date back more than 2.5 million years, with the Oldowan tools from Africa as a prime example. Over time, we see remarkable technological leaps. The Acheulean hand axe with its distinctive oval shape, and the Levallois technique, which involved striking small, sharp flakes from a larger stone core. Stone was the primary material, but far from the only one. At sites like Boxgrove in England and Schöningen in Germany, archaeologists have discovered wooden spears over 2 meters long, carved to a sharp point, capable of piercing the hide of large animals. Animal bones, ivory, and hardwood were also used to craft weapons and tools. Toolmaking was not simply an instinctive act. It required observation, learning, and imitation. Skilled stone knappers often served as teachers within their communities. Evidence from the site of Gesher Beno Yaakov in Israel shows stone tools of highly uniform size and shape, suggesting the existence of craftsmanship standards. Once tools became an extension of the human body, the ability to hunt, butcher meat, crack bones, and defend against predators increased dramatically. This was the first step in humanity's gradual escape from total dependence on nature. Fire. The flame of civilization. No fire, no people. Without fire came freezing nights, hunger, and the constant threat of becoming prey. But learning how to create and preserve fire was a breakthrough. Not every human group achieved it. Fire first appeared in human life through natural forces such as lightning strikes and volcanic eruptions. But the ability to make fire on demand was a turning point. At the Wonderwerk cave site in South Africa, archaeologists have found traces of ash and burnt bone dating back 1 million years. Common methods for starting fires included hand-drilling wooden sticks or striking flint against pyrite. Keeping a fire alive was even harder. Glowing embers had to be insulated in slow-burning materials like dried dung or rotting bark. When migrating, prehistoric people carried fire as they carried life itself. Fire did more than cook food, making it easier to digest. It also drove away predators and kept people warm. Archaeological evidence shows that hearths were often located at the center of shelters, surrounded by remnants of bones, tools, and charred fruits. Fire was the heart of the camp, the place where people gathered to tell stories, teach survival skills, and shape the first sense of community. Some modern-day peoples, such as the San of southern Africa or the Negrito groups of the Philippines, still keep fire-centered rituals, offerings to deities, rain prayers, or spirit-calling ceremonies. This reflects fire's deep spiritual role in the social fabric of prehistoric life. Sexuality, reproduction, and social organization. They were about to form a family, but what did family mean in prehistoric times? Was it one man and one woman, or a community that shared everything? Who raised the children? Who decided on mating? And was sex only for reproduction? Archaeology has uncovered no marriage certificates from the Stone Age, but it does offer clues in the way people lived. Collective burial sites, traces of temporary shelters, and objects placed beside the remains of women and children. These suggest the existence of small social units, perhaps something like a nuclear family. Yet anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies such as the Kung, Inuit, or Yanomami reveal a wide variety of patterns. Some practice strict monogamy, others share partners, or have leaders who choose their wives. In a world without DNA testing, identifying a child's father was not always straightforward. Skilled hunters or men of high status were often seen as collective fathers, taking on the role of protectors for the group's children. Women often chose partners based on strength, skill, and willingness to share resources. It wasn't always a matter of coercion. Many prehistoric fertility figurines, like the Venus of Willendorf, dating to around 25,000 years ago, show reverence for fertility and the ability to give life, rather than mere sexual beauty. Childbirth was a communal event. Mothers often gave birth standing or squatting, assisted by other women. There was no formal medicine, but oral traditions on childbirth and knowledge of herbal remedies emerged early. A family didn't always mean blood relations. Sometimes it was simply a small group that shared food, protected the young, told stories, and kept the fire alive. From such bonds, the earliest foundations of human society began to take shape. Family, love, and caring for one another. A disabled skeleton that survived for another 10 years, not because of medicine, but because of community. In Shanidar Cave, Iraq, archaeologists discovered the remains of a Neanderthal who had suffered a broken arm, was blind in one eye, and partially paralyzed. Yet this person lived for at least a decade after the injury. In the wild, such survival would have been nearly impossible unless someone fed them, kept them warm, and protected them. This survival is powerful evidence of compassion, care, and a family structure far deeper than we once believed. The ability to treat wounds and care for the sick was not just an early sign of medicine. It was the first mark of a truly human society. Healed cuts and properly set bones show that prehistoric people knew how to clean wounds, bandage them with leaves, or at least keep them from becoming infected. In many ancient graves, the elderly and the infirm were buried with tools or personal items, proof that they held status and were loved within their groups. Emotional bonds meant life was not lived for oneself alone. Archaeological evidence reveals many double burials, an adult and a child, or two adults, laid to rest hand in hand, or with their faces turned toward one another. Such discoveries lead anthropologists to ask, did prehistoric people love? Perhaps not in the modern romantic sense, but clearly there were lasting bonds, responsibility, and deep emotion. The role of the mother was central, both biologically and socially. Giving birth was no easy task in such a harsh environment. Fossil evidence shows that the pelvis of Homo sapiens evolved to accommodate large-headed babies, meaning childbirth was more painful, more difficult, and required assistance. This likely gave rise to a form of ancient midwifery, where one or more women helped during labor, forming an early network of female cooperation. Signs of childbirth, early cradles, and infant care have been found in multiple archaeological sites. Small stones arranged around a sleeping area may have been used to retain warmth or protect newborns. Some caves bear tiny handprints, possibly made by children during rituals or play. The presence of children in the adult world was not only expected, but central to the continuity of culture and lineage. Shelter, more than just caves. Caves were only a temporary option. The true homes of prehistoric people were the shelters they built from bone, branches, and ingenuity. In Central Asia, archaeologists have found structures made from mammoth bones, forming sturdy tent frames covered in animal hides, complete with smoke holes. In Europe, traces of wooden posts driven into the ground show that prehistoric groups built seasonal shelters they could return to year after year. Home was not a fixed place. It was anywhere that could be raised to block the rain, shield the wind, and keep the fire burning. Shelter types varied widely depending on climate. In colder regions, hide-covered structures were supported by wooden poles or animal bones. In the tropics, people made use of rock overhangs, tree canopies, and lightweight materials for quick shelter. Archaeological sites in Siberia show traces of stone-paved floors, likely to keep moisture out and retain heat. Inside these shelters, nothing was arranged by accident. At Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, researchers found evidence of a central hearth, surrounded by distinct areas, a meat processing space, a tool-making area, and a corner with children's bones. This suggests that prehistoric people already organized their living spaces according to function. Were painted caves actually homes? The question is still debated. In many decorated caves, there are no traces of hearths or everyday refuse, indicating they were not used for permanent living. Instead, they may have served as ritual spaces, places for teaching children, or spiritual gathering centers. Caves like Altamira in Spain and Lascaux in France contain deep corridors filled with vivid animal paintings, but no signs of cooking fires, burned wood, or predator scat. Music, art, and spirituality. No one knows exactly when humans began to sing, paint, or believe in the unseen, but they did these things long before they knew how to write. A flute, carved from the wing bone of a vulture, over 40,000 years old, was discovered at Geisenklosterle in Germany. It has finger holes, proving that prehistoric people understood how to control pitch and create melodies. In the caves of France and Spain, walls are covered with animal paintings, works born not from instinct, but from the will to express. The oldest known instrument was not a drum, but a flute, a fact that has astonished researchers. Making music requires both abstract thinking and emotion, a form of communication that goes beyond spoken language. Music may have been used to call a group together, to perform seasonal rituals, to heal, or simply for joy. Cave paintings, small fertility figurines, and handprints all share a common trait. They are found deep inside caves, in places dark and difficult to reach. This suggests they carried a sacred meaning rather than serving as decoration. The Venus figurines, depicting women with large breasts, rounded bellies, and full hips, have been found from Siberia to France, dating back more than 25,000 years. Were these the prehistoric ideals of fertility, or the earliest symbols of divine power? Migration and adaptation. Humans were never meant to stay still. When food ran out, early humans didn't build villages. They packed up their shelters and moved on. From burning deserts to frozen forests, from Africa to Asia, then across land bridges into the Americas, the story of humanity is one of constant movement in search of life. Seasonal migration, following animals, and adapting to climate shifts. Prehistoric people didn't live in one place permanently. They followed migrating herds, sought water during dry seasons, and avoided monsoon winds or severe winters. Their survival depended entirely on the environment, and to endure, they had to remain flexible. These journeys were not impulsive decisions, but the result of inherited knowledge and a keen understanding of nature, tracing the journey from Africa to the rest of the world. We all share roots in Africa. Around 70,000 years ago, small groups began leaving the continent, crossing the Arabian Peninsula, spreading through Asia and Europe, and eventually reaching the Americas and Oceania. This journey is recorded not only in our DNA, but also in stone tools, cave paintings, and fossil sites. Migration was more than geography. It was the seed of cultural, linguistic, physical, and lifestyle diversity, adapting food, shelter, and tools to the land. Every new environment posed unique challenges. In cold regions, they wore animal fur and built shelters from mammoth bones or snow pits. In arid lands, they learned to store water and follow deep-rooted plants. They crafted tools from local stone, shells, antlers, and bamboo. Diets shifted too. Some hunted large game, others dug roots or gathered insects. Flexibility and adaptability were the keys to survival. The link between migration and the growth of intelligence. Migration was not just movement. It was a test of the mind. Each new land forced them to observe, judge, remember, and share knowledge. They told stories orally, recorded events in paintings, and strengthened bonds through rituals. Their brains grew alongside their journeys. On this endless path, humans didn't just survive. They evolved mentally and spiritually. It was this relentless movement that helped shape us into a species capable of extraordinary thought. The value system of prehistoric people. There were no churches, no written laws, no courts to pass judgment. Yet prehistoric humans lived within an order, guided by an instinctive morality. They knew how to share, understood forbidden boundaries, recognized which behaviors were acceptable, and what price came with betrayal. Perhaps morality did not begin with gods, but with the necessity of surviving together. The rules of sharing food, the foundation of survival. In a hunter-gatherer society, food was more than a resource. It was the bond that held the group together. A successful hunter rarely kept the meat for himself. He shared it with everyone, knowing that next time, someone else might return with the meal. This sharing not only kept the group alive in a harsh environment, but also created an unspoken social contract. The selfish could be cast out, an unspoken sentence that needed no law. The taboos against incest and killing within the group. Even among the earliest prehistoric communities, anthropologists have found signs of moral limits. Incest, though not outlawed in writing, was generally avoided because of its harmful biological consequences. Many modern hunter-gatherer societies still practice spouse exchange between groups to prevent inbreeding. Similarly, killing a member of one's own group was almost always seen as a grave wrong, as it weakened the community. Punishment could mean exile or loss of group protection, both of which could be a death sentence. Prehistoric people did not need divine commandments to know right from wrong. They learned it from a mother's disapproving gaze, from the reaction of the group, from the hunger that came when food was withheld. In this way, morality took shape, not as a gift from above, but rising from the earth itself, born of survival and the need to live together.